Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, Alex Anthopoulos, he's a genius.
And a friend to the show agrees with ATL Day Ones on the possibility of Falcons trading back, but the ATL Day Ones team doesn't agree with him on who they should get if they do.
And last but not least, and for the culture, is it time for Cam Newton to retire? We'll talk about all that next, right here on ATL Day Ones. Let's go.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. Today's episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. But T, when you think about last night, the Atlanta Braves, they walk it off against the San Diego Padres in the home opener. Orlando Arcia singles to center field and brings in Eddie Rosario for the game-winning run. They walked that bad boy off. The celebration was started. Everything looks great. But I think the main thing for me, T, when you think about what Orlando Arcia is batting .370, I know it's early, but when you think about the early returns on a decision to make Orlando Arcia the starter for the Atlanta Braves, you got to look at this regime, Alex Anthopoulos and Brian Snitker, and say, you know what? These guys know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah. And it's interesting because less than a month ago, March 20th to be exact, we got the news that Braden Shoemake and Vaughn Grissom were going to be optioned to AAA, which seemed to clear the path for Orlando Arcia to take over as the starter at shortstop. But it was a head scratcher because everybody assumed that with the work Grissom had done in the offseason, especially with Ron Washington, who gave him glowing reviews, that he'd be good to go. And if he wasn't, Shoemake would be the next option, not Arcia. But that's the way the Braves went. And then 10 days later, March 30th, they gave him a 3-year extension. So to me, they were solidifying, hey, we do think this is our guy, at least for a good portion of this season, and could be quite a resource for us for the next couple years. Now, to think now, about 10 more days later, maybe 15 days later, this guy really, it wasn't even just the walk-off single. Like, he literally set the tone for this game almost at the beginning. Third inning, solo homer. So we're talking about a guy that literally had set the stage for this, of course, other than Travis d'Arnaud and what he did in the 8th inning to tie up the game and set up the walk-off single by Arcia. But he is showing that he's not just the guy who has defensive prowess, but he is showing that he actually is valuable at the plate as well. And I was saying on air this morning over at the radio station that, like Alex Anthopoulos, Brian Snitker and company really have a line of vision that just hits different.
Yeah, they like, and I love the way how you frame that, the vision, right? And you be able to see it, because to be honest with you, I didn't see it. I was like, wait a minute, Vaughn Grissom had been, at the plate, been pretty solid, but like Uncle Ron said, hey, go down there and go get better. And I think that Vaughn Grissom is starting to show some signs that, hey, I'm up to the challenge to try to get back on this major league roster. So, but when it all boils down to those guys making the right decisions when it comes to having that depth and making sure that they're building out that depth, because that's going to be something that they're going to need, and especially when you talk about Michael Harris having lower back issues. They said it was precautionary, but still, when you're talking about a young pup like that, rookie of the year, going out for a lower back injury, you're like, okay, there has to be something serious, because this is a young cat. You get to kind of play through it and kind of keep it moving. But I think that, Alex Anthopoulos and Brian Snitker are in a really good space right now as far as making the right decisions for this team, and making sure they're putting their guys in good position to win games early on.
Yeah, and they have enough in the platoon to where they showed you last night that Sam Hilliard was someone whom they essentially subbed in.
Right.
And, he was solid in subbing in for MH2. And I believe them when they say that Michael Harris II is day-to-day. So we're going to hope and believe that that's going to be the case, especially if you're looking at this as a 4-game series and then going back on the road, if you will. So you look at that, and I think at the end of the day, it's not like you said. It's a little bit unnerving because it's like, oh gosh, the young guy, you don't want to see him out that soon. And certainly, we were just saying yesterday that as long as there aren't any injuries of a major sort, that I mean, the Braves should be fine, right? But I
Right.
do think that this is one of those where if the Braves say that it's a precautionary situation, then it is because hey, you get through the weekend. Hopefully, Sam Hillier gets you there and check that. Then you'll be ready possibly for Michael Harris II to come back for the Reds series at home or to be available for the end of this Padres series.
Yeah, and that's what you can hope for because this is something that, like in the home opener, you're getting the win, you're getting off to a good start. I think one of those things that you have to take a look at is making sure that those guys you don't want to put them in a position to have a long-term injury. And I think that them being taking their time with this thing and kind of taking it day by day, like you said, this is why you build that depth. This is why you bring guys in that can fill in from be spot duty guys. And, well, of course, the Braves have plenty of those guys, as we know. Now, T, speaking of, teams getting off to a good start, the Hawks are coming down to an end. This thing is almost over, and I can tell you this much: I'm glad that it is, but I am looking forward to see what this team does once the play-in round. We know they have clinched the spot, but they take on the Philadelphia 76ers, and the one thing that just came out not too long ago was the fact that Joel Embiid didn't even travel with the team. So the leading MVP candidate won't be on the court tonight against the Hawks, but James Harden did make the trip, so we can probably expect him to be out there. What are some of the things that the Hawks need to do tonight, T, to go ahead and get this win and try to close out this season on a 5-game winning streak?
Yeah, and it's interesting because, it's exciting to think that the Hawks could actually even have 4 wins in a row, or like you said, should they win on Sunday in Boston, then it would be 5 wins in a row. And we haven't essentially seen that since January 13th. It's literally been almost 2 months since we have seen the Hawks be able to string together 5 wins, if you will. And granted, let's be honest here. It's probably likely that the Hawks are going to be in that 8th seed, right? Because the 7th seed, they have less than a 3% chance to get there. So many things would have to happen in order for the Hawks to actually get into that 7th seed. So, okay, let's call it the 8th seed. But like you said, you still want to go into the play-in round. You don't want to back into that as well. So I really want to see them do what we know they're able to do. I mean, they beat the 76ers earlier in the season, that first game of the season. So we know that they're capable of beating the 76ers, right? And then you take out a guy like Joel Embiid, who is the heart and soul of that team and who definitely bested the Hawks in both of those losses that they experienced to the 76ers. Hey, take advantage of it and give more opportunity to some of the guys who may be coming back. DeAndre Hunter's been upgraded to questionable. Now, the Sixers haven't released their injury report yet, so we don't know other than Embiid who will or won't play for them. But more important thing is we do know that there's a possibility that Dre comes back. So if you can get him back in limited minutes and just kind of make sure that his body's right for the play, and that's one thing you can do. In addition, if you can continue to give the bench mob quality minutes, you get those young guys ready for what is going to have to be, especially if they play a team like the Heat, who we all know. The Heat give the Hawks the blues, then get them mentally ready, right? We talked about basketball IQ last night. This is another opportunity over these next 2 games against the Sixers, against the Celtics, to get your rookies and really your young core ready for what is going to be a battle royal down in Miami.
And you talking about a bench mob. How about this, T? Found this stat. 41 points coming from the bench since the All-Star break. That's second in the NBA. So when we had these conversations about the Jalen Johnsons of the world, the Bogies of the world, the Sadiq Beys of the world. All of those guys have been contributing ever since that All-Star break and Quinn Snyder have taken over. Those guys have clearly defined roles, and you can see it in the production coming off the bench because that bench has carried this team when the starters have struggled, and I'm really looking forward to those guys continuing to do that tonight against the 76ers because we know that this team has been pretty locked in these last few games, and I got to give another kudos to JC. John Collins has been shooting 40% from 3 in the last 15 games. That is huge because we know he has to be able to hit that three in order to be effective with the way this roster is currently constructed. So, yeah, looking forward to those guys getting that thing going tonight. But I'm also looking forward to you guys getting some money. You know how you're going to do that? Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn because it is the #1 sports book in America. You rock with us each and every day because we are the #1 podcast in America. Come on now. Who else is in front of us? Go ahead and try to name it. Drop them in the comment box. Try to name it. I promise you, we're better than them. But this is something that they have for the new customers coming up, right? They have the no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So just download the FanDuel Sports app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You don't have to worry about your information being shared and all that stuff like that. So, yeah, make sure you go there and to check out everything because they have the money line, the point scores, and threes drain. You can bet on all that stuff. They have everything right there so you can make you some money. Plus, you combine your bets for a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So, don't miss your chance to get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA.
So, Jarvis, you know what time it is. It is mock draft season 775.0.
Right. 1,000.
Yes, it's just the reality of where we are. So we have a little fun on this show with mock drafts, and we'll be bringing you guys a couple interesting mock drafts in the coming weeks. Of course, we'll mock draft the Falcons rounds 1 all the way through round 7, but we're also going to give you guys a little treat of some local talent and kind of talking about where they might land in this upcoming draft. But as far as today goes, we're taking a look at a friend of the show, a colleague of ours, and his mock draft. So his most recent one, that is. So Josh Kendall, who's over with The Athletic, does some excellent work in covering the Falcons, has released a 7-round mock draft recently. And we're just going to talk about the first round because I thought that was all the reaction that you might want and need to have this morning because interestingly enough, now he agrees with one scenario that we even spoke about on this show yesterday, which is the possibility of the Falcons trading back from that 8th position. However, where we disagree is A, how far they should trade back, or at least that's my opinion. We'll see what you say. And B, who they should get once they trade back. So let me set the scene for you. Josh is saying that he believes the Falcons should trade back to around that 17th overall pick, which would be a trade with my beloved Steelers, which I wouldn't be mad about that part. And then drafting Bijan Robinson out of Texas. Bijan Robinson is a running back. Now, the other piece of what Kendall said was the trade with the Steelers would also have the Falcons acquiring the 32nd overall pick. And get this, he would say it would be homegrown, local Georgia tight end Darnell Washington. Jarvis, like I said, have no issues with the trade back. Kind of am actually warming up to that as being maybe my favorite scenario of what the Falcons do in the upcoming draft in the first round. However, Jarvis,
come on,
a running back at 17,
no,
trading back to 17, and taking Darnell Washington, trading back in the 32nd pick.
No.
Wow.
No, T. Like, you know who I blame on this? You know who I blame on this Bijan Robinson bull crap? I blame Aaron freaking Freeman. Yes, I'm calling him out. Locked on Falcons. We love you. I love you, Aaron. That's my dog. That's the homie. We do the Locked On Falcons postcast during the season. Make sure y'all check that out. It's always a treat and a joy to waffle in the losses and some wins, you know, with this Atlanta Falcons team. But I blame Aaron Freeman. He started this Bijan Robinson stuff, and now everybody running with it. And I'm just sitting up here like, man, come on. Like, but all jokes aside, though, T. Like, here's the thing. Like, I like smart GMs. Smart GMs, they find value at that position. I don't mind finding value at the position. The Ezekiel Elliott's of the world, the Saquon Barkley's of the world, yeah, those the guys are cool in the first 4 years. But then when you start to come around, that 5th-year option, and then you got to sit down there and pay those guys, and then you look at Zeke, got fat and happy in Dallas, and then you got Saquon Barkley, who had a couple injuries, and you don't know whether or not he franchise tag and going through all this stuff. I don't want to go through all that because here's why. You have a guy in Tyler Algier that's more than capable. He was a 1,000-yard runner last year. He has the high. And for him to come in and be able to be a guy that can pass block for you as well, because, we don't see rookie running backs doing that. That's why a lot of them don't get into the game like they do. So I love the position, right? That 17th, a little bit over, in the second half of the first round. I love that because guess what? You can get a Keon White, you can get an Osiris Torrance, who we've talked about on this show. Those guys are going to be right there waiting for you. And then you pick up an extra second round pick, right? And at 32, and you get a Darnell Washington, like, I just don't, that's not like, I'm all hashtag Tenitra Mantra. To me, Tenitra Mantra, like, what are we doing? Like, let's follow that path.
Two offensive players not name somebody in the trenches.
Yeah, like I'm like, come on.
Now, honestly, if that 17th was an O lineman, I probably would I'd rock with it. And that 30 seconds,
yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Those really are the two that I'm perfectly okay, or that's the one position that I'm perfectly okay with. If you go out and there's an incredible left guard that's available, that's perfectly okay. But right. I totally agree with you. And even thinking about my Steelers, for example, a couple of years ago, we got Najee Harris at 24. Yeah. And Najee Harris is an absolute beast.
Absolutely.
So you really never have to trade up or excuse me, you never these days have to go anywhere but the late first round. And that's the late first round to get like the super game changer, in my opinion.
You get the best running back in the draft because Najee Harris was hands down the best running back in that draft.
We got him at 24 and we're all good. So and for me, I'm going to take just a little bit of a slightly different pathway or a slightly different direction in terms of where I want the trade back to go. I personally don't want it to go past 15. I really don't, because I just think that I think it's going to be one of those run situations where the first run I think will be on QBs, and then I do think the next run is going to be on edge. And so I don't know if who you want will actually be there around 17. I'm kind of thinking, I sat at 14 and 15. I've sat there for forever, really 14. That's kind of as far as I want the Falcons to kind of trade back, if at all possible. Right. I think that's part one. And part two goes back to what you said, in agreement. Tyler Algier has shown the goods. I mean, he did what you want him to do, which is get progressively better throughout the season. That also is going to bode well for Cordell Patterson because he's not going to have to do all that heavy lifting.
Have to carry load. Exactly.
Last season. I think that's good. And also, Jarvis, you look at a key fact that you said, which you cannot say. You can say actually about the majority of running backs in the league. After about 3, maybe 4 seasons, especially if they get through the entirety of their first 3 or 4 seasons, they're not even good for much of anything. I mean, literally. So why would you invest that much capital in a running back when, hey, I mean, Caleb Huntley is kind of serviceable there. And if you needed Avery Williams, you have Avery Williams. And you also still have 3rd and 4th and even 5th round picks to choose from. And then going back to the Darnell Washington option, I mean, you have Kyle Pitts, and you just went out there and got Jonnu Smith. I think you
might be okay at tight end.
It's solid. Yeah, I think it's solid enough that if you wanted to get a tight end maybe in the 3rd or 4th round, or I mean, I don't know, maybe trade back up into the 2nd round to get a tight end, maybe I'd be okay with that. But I mean, I do think you're okay, even with, having a Parker Hesse still out there. That one was just interesting to me. So when I saw that, I said, normally we definitely rock with Josh Kendall's insight because he really does think outside of the box and he kind of thinks with players. But in this case, I was thinking, I'm not quite sure that's the way to kind of rock and roll, especially with everything that the Falcons have done, even in free agency, and can still do. You never know who they may pick up at running back in free agency. And if you want to just still keep someone for the adding to the tight end room, you could certainly do that. And speaking of that, Jarvis, I think that at the end of the day, free agency has shown itself to be nothing but solid for the Falcons.
Yes.
I think the term that we kind of have used, and I say it, they've been conservative. They made it rain, but they made it rain in a very conservative way. So I think that's something I would continue to look to see them do. And again, if they had to go that route with going and getting somebody to add to the running back room or the tight end room, sure do hope you go back to free agency or deep in the draft. But please and thank you, just listen to the ATL Day Ones. We know what we're talking about when we say go defense or just trenches, period.
Please, don't play with my emotions like that, T. Because I don't know what I would do if the Falcons were to draft Bijan Robinson, especially if they do it at 8. Like I've
17. I would.
It's 17. I'll probably lose my mind. I was like, what are we doing? Like, what is like? Y'all don't understand. Listen to us. We telling you, we giving you the goods each and every day. Like, come on now, like. We know what we're talking about.
Right. And the Falcons, and I'm confident, however, that the Falcons will do the right thing because free agency has shown them to do the right thing. And even if you look back at last year's draft, it was a draft to be pleased about. Yes, we have not maybe seen what we want to see a little bit more maybe out of Arnold Ebiketie or Malone and Troy Anderson, for example, but the potential's there. We saw shades of what they could be. So I think, again, not just what they've done in free agency this offseason, but even what they did last year in the draft. And let's be real, what Fontenot and Smith did even offseason before last season, when they had absolutely nothing to work with. But when we talk about having something to work with, that would be Built Bar, because they give you so many choices. I thought this was so cool. I got a note from them yesterday, Jarvis, about some new flavors and some new, like, interesting little combinations that they have that I wanted to share. So you guys know, we tell you all the time, we are about the healthy snacks around here because we are about getting our bodies right, especially as we go to summer, but not just to be fine, but also to be fine as far as being fit. So don't forget, you too can get on the Built Bar train, and they have a couple new flavors. One of their puff flavors is brown batter and churro, but also they are going back to some of their oldies but goodies. When you think about the Snickerdoodle puff, the Crave Built Bar, the Mint Brownie Puff, and the Grasshopper Cookie. You can have it all and even still get 15 grams of protein, only 130 calories, and 4 grams of sugar. So if you want that, go to built.com because, hey, the weather's kind of dreary, so I know you probably don't want to go out and buy one. But if you're somebody like me who goes out rain, snow, sleet, or hail, then you can catch Sam's Club for Built Bars in like a 13-box stack, buying in bulk. Or you can get 4 bars at your local Walmart. So don't forget, if you want a healthy snack that makes you happy, that makes you whole, because the Hawks are going to win tonight, and that's going to make you want to celebrate, go out and get yourself a Built Bar.
Absolutely. Go ahead and get you a Built Bar. Go check that thing out, man. Go ahead and lose some weight because we know what time it is. We up here trying to get right. You see, we slim and fine up in this thing. Well, I might not be slim, but, T-slim. I'm not slim. But anyway, we want to thank you guys for rocking with ATL Day Ones, being an everydayer. You guys are listening every day. So, you're part of the crew. You're probably the fam. If you have not subscribed or downloaded the podcast, go ahead and do so right now. Become an everydayer as well. Become a part of the family. But, T, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on this show. Today is no different. When you think about Cam Newton, T, this dude has been a lightning rod ever since he stepped into the NFL. Matter of fact, let me go even further back. When he decided to go to Auburn, and how he got to Auburn and his daddy and all this stuff, it just was a lot of stuff surrounding by Cam Newton. And I think that the one thing they've always respected about Cam is he's always remained the same. He's remained the same Cam. He's remained the same Cam Newton that's from Atlanta, and he kind of shows that, like, hey, I am who I am, and I think that, this story about him kind of speaks to what Cam Newton is, because, he came out and said that, he's willing to be a backup, but he also took it a step further and named the guys who would be willing to be a backup too. When you think about, like, all of the scrutiny, all of the criticism that Cam has gotten over the years, does this kind of take the cake as far as, like, yeah, they're going to get your butt again? Does it take the cake?
It is so Cam Newton. Like, I mean, it's Cam's gonna Cam. I mean,
Right,
Cam is going
absolutely.
to Cam.
Absolutely.
And this is a Cam is going to Cam moment. And when you look at the list, you can't be mad because listen,
Right.
if I have my druthers to say, okay, this is the radio station or this is the TV network I want to be with.
Right.
Man, why wouldn't I? If I had put up numbers like he did and I'm an MVP type candidate, I mean, hey, I have the right to go where I want to, don't I? So listen
Right.
to the list. And the list makes sense because, okay, he wants to go and sit behind Deshaun Watson. Okay,
Okay.
that's
Fair.
not a bad person to be an understudy for because there's a chance that he's probably not going to get through 17 games. He is one who's not injured very often, so Cam
Right.
won't see a lot of playing time, but definitely he could be with a team who also potentially is a playoff, if not Super Bowl contender, like long shot style, right? Now,
Right.
Ravens QB Lamar Jackson. Now, do you want to be the Ravens QB backup or Lamar Jackson's backup? Because I don't think those are the same backups this season.
Right.
But that was what he put down. I like Justin Fields because I think actually also Malik Willis because I think he could have a great impact on those
Yeah.
two guys, right?
Especially
Because
being
they
from
have
the area. Yeah, both of them.
there it
Yeah.
is. And they also have some styles that are similar to his, where he can maybe help them to mold and shape their styles because we know where he was at the beginning of his career and where he was when he was in MVP form. And I
Right.
like the fact that he even said, hey, I'll sit behind CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, or Anthony Richardson because, again, you're talking about a
Definitely
wide
Anthony Richardson. Yeah.
Yes,
You're talking
who
about
could-
physical
that's
freaks
what I was gonna
quarterbacks.
say. He could probably teach him a thing or two about, hey, guys, if
Absolutely.
your
Yeah.
legs are your best weapon, I'm going to help you to understand how your arm can be much more complementary than it is. And for Stroud and Young, he could help those guys to understand how to be better outside of the pocket. So I kind of like where he's going with it. And again, you can't be mad at him wanting to sit behind Josh Allen because, hey, Bills, another Super Bowl contender. But I will tell you, the head scratcher for me was the Commanders QB Sam Howell, assuming it would be him, unless Cam assumes that he could take over as the starting QB1.
So let me give you a little insight into that. Let me
Please
give you
and
my
thank you.
Jarvis hunch on that one. So when you think about that situation right there, Sam Howell, yeah, he ain't no starting quarterback. Let's keep it funky. And you know who the new OC is now over there? Eric Bieniemy. You know what I'm saying? This is Cam saying, you know what? I'll be willing to be a backup. I know Sam Howell. He's not gonna say it out loud. I know Sam Howell is eventually gonna mess up and play.
Well, that's what I just said. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so you know what I'm saying? So he know he's gonna mess up. And this is Cam saying, you know what? He did say, I will bring this up. Quote, there aren't 32 quarterbacks better than me. He did say that. So I think that's one of those choices where, yeah, I'll be humble in these situations. Aaron Rodgers, yeah, I'll sit behind him too. You know, all the little young pups, I mentor those cats, show them how to get down, being a mobile quarterback, black brother, a brother in the NFL. But Sam Howell, though, yeah, I'll be a backup because I know a player's going to mess up at some point in life. And I think that, with Cam, though, it is just so funny. But let me ask you this, though, T, before we get out of here. Do you think it's a situation now where Cam kind of might have just needed to just say, you know what? It might be time for me to sit down.
I can never say that because if you love your job,
fair.
which so many people in the world hate the work that they do, or they
Right,
hate
no
where
doubt.
they work or who they work for.
No doubt,
If
no
you
doubt.
have an opportunity that comes to your doorstep, doing the job you love, B, with the team you love, and C, you're able to still do it at a fairly decent high level relative to maybe not where you were, but where others are, I can't say, hey, you should go sit down. I can't do that because I know for the work that I do love that I do, I wouldn't want anybody to tell me, even if I'm not on my game anymore, hey, we think it's time for you to sit down. I think that's kind of a Cam decision somewhat, but then again, the GMs of these teams, they may make the decision for him.
Yeah, and that's kind of how it normally ends in football. Like you play until they tell you can't play anymore. And I think that, coaches have been kind of hinting at like, hey, man, you can't play anymore. But, it's definitely going to be ultimately up to him because my at the end of the day, like you said, like when you love what you do, like we really like what we do. So it's just for somebody to sit up here, some random person to say, you should sit down and retire. Like the gumption that you have to be able to say something like that, I feel. So, yeah, I think it's something that's going to be really cool to kind of see if he gets an opportunity, because we know that he still wants to play. But ultimately, that's going to be up to a coach, for a head coach for an NFL team to say, you know what, let's give him a shot. But until then, he's going to be sitting out here, sitting on the sidelines and, doing his thing and running his cigar shop. But anyway, T, we got to tell the people to make sure that if you are a listener of ATL Day Ones or Locked On Sports Atlanta or Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, why don't you go ahead and make sure you check us out on Monday and become an everydayer. That's what we're trying to do. Become a part of the family, because, hey, we love that you all check us out each and every day. And for those who don't, go and join the party. We're waiting on you. I promise you. And we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. Now, before we get out of there, got to say this. If you don't do anything else for the rest of this weekend, make sure that you share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love.